Hi, today we'll be talking to Gidon Novick on entrepreneurship. How are you, Gidon?
Good on you, Ben.
I'm good, thank you. So, to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the world of entrepreneurship?
Sure, Ben. I got started pretty early on in the entrepreneurial world. I've always been interested in building new things ever since I was pretty much at school, and certainly after school, always been looking for new business ideas and opportunities to start new things. Most of them, well, let's say many of them haven't worked. Some of them, luckily, have worked. And that's just been my story. I think it's quite addictive once you start
Yeah.
building new things to carry on building new things.
You mentioned that some things may not work, and I think the key word here is failures. So, what failures have taught you lessons, and how have these lessons influenced the success you've become today?
Well, I mean, failures, it sounds like a harsh word, but I mean,
Yeah.
not succeeding or not working is inevitable
Yeah.
because, unless you don't try anything, in which case you're probably guaranteed of, I guess, not failing is there's going to be lots of things that don't work, and the only way you're going to figure that out is if you try, and you try in a way that you don't bet everything on it. So in other words, you don't kind of take all your money, I don't think, and put it on one thing, and then that one thing doesn't work. So I think you've got to try lots of things, and you've also got to try and figure out what are the things that you like doing, because it's
Yeah.
not just the things that work, because something might work. Actually, it's probably not going to work if you don't really enjoy doing it, and you don't wake up every morning excited about the challenge and solving all the problems that you're going to have to solve. So you got to, look for that thing that makes you excited, that is somehow realistic and has a reasonable probability of success, and then give it a go. And don't be traumatized if and when it doesn't work. Just move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. So, I'm going to go back to your previous answer on starting early and that you started early in your career. Is there a level of importance in starting earlier in a certain workspace?
Ben, I think it's more of a mindset than a
Yeah.
specific business thing. I think if your mindset is, the world is massive. There's so many, a gazillion different things that you could choose to do in the world. It's just such a huge thing to take on as a young person. So I think the earlier you start trying to figure out what it is, firstly, that you like, most importantly, that you like, and secondly, and as I say, there's probably going to be a strong correlation between what you like and what you're good at, and what is ultimately successful. The sooner you can start that journey, the better.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there's so many opportunities in such a big world, which I completely agree with. When you look at our society today compared to when you were a teenager or when you were started off in the business world, what opportunities have come about where people can possibly earn money or take this opportunity and turn them into a certain level of wealth?
Well, I think the range of opportunities is that much greater because, firstly, the world is much more connected. So, when I was your age, my kind of sphere of potential or opportunity was very limited. Geographically, it was limited. I think in terms of our parents and what they kind of
Yeah.
perceived as being the right career to follow was, it wasn't their own fault, but it was just quite limiting in terms of the range of options. Now, I think the flip side, turning to where we are today, I mean, it's got pros and cons because on the one hand, it's much more open. You can be anywhere in the world and
Yeah.
you can do a job. You're much more knowledgeable and exposed to the opportunities that are out there. So that can be quite overwhelming, I'm sure, because now you've got to like figure this whole thing out.
Yeah.
So going back to your point, which I think is such a great one, is like start early, trying to figure out what it is that you really like, what it is that you're good at. And if you can't figure it out, it's also okay because it takes time. I mean, it took me well into my 20s and probably 30s before I said, okay, this is actually what I like doing, and these are the kind of people I like working with, and these are the kind of things that I want to be doing in my life. So don't feel, stressed in terms of landing on that one thing that you end up, having to,
Yeah.
that you want to spend, your days on.
So you mentioned the type of people that you want to almost be around, which you only sort of realize in your 20s and going into your 30s. What kind of people should we be surrounding ourselves with as teenagers to try achieve success?
Well, I think there's an element of, I guess, uniqueness in that, or personalization in that. So, we all like different people. I personally like people that are smart. I love
Yeah.
clever people. And it's just, I love energetic people. I love creative people. I love people that are not too focused on their own ego. So they're able to just kind of have open conversations. If
Yeah.
they get challenged, they don't take it personally. They just want to solve the problem, and they just want to move things forward. So those are the kind of people that give me energy. I like kind people. I like people that are selfless, that are not only looking out for themselves, that are looking at the greater good, and the group and the community in which they operate. So I think, even that exploration is important, to actually figure out, like, who are the kind of people that you want to be spending your time with,
Yeah.
and ultimately, I would I would guess that that's also going to play a big role in terms of your success. Is that if you're with the right kind of people, if you're with the kind of people that give you energy and inspire you, you're going to have a much greater chance of success.
I completely agree with you. And you mentioned a keyword, which is ego. And I think ego is one of those things which almost stop people from achieving success, if I'm not mistaken, because with someone with the ego will turn around and say, I'm right, I'm always right. And there's always room for improvement in any field you're in my opinion. How crucial is it to get rid of the ego to try achieve success?
Well, I think there's always voices in one's head that are, kind of, thoughts that you have. Like the way I think about ego is that we have so many thoughts that are popping into our head all the time, and those thoughts often don't serve us well.
Oh,
They can be negative thoughts. They can be thoughts around protecting your ego. They can be thoughts around maybe a past experience that you had which didn't work out. And I think being aware of your thoughts, and just being aware that all they are thoughts. It's not you. It's just a thought that's
yeah.
coming into your head, and then as quickly as it came, it's going to disappear as well. So I think it's important to just be aware of your thoughts, and make sure and that you are consciously, um, making decisions and choices that you want to make, and then that you're not being driven by negative thoughts, and thoughts that are, kind of taking you in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So there's a key word that I've used throughout a lot of my interviews on success and with a lot of entrepreneurs, which is manifestation. And manifestation, which you probably know of, is trying to tell yourself that you're going to achieve. How can we balance manifesting in your own head and having a too bigger ego?
Well, I think dreaming is important.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another take on manifestation. I mean, the future has not yet happened, and the future, no one knows. None of us know how the future is going to unfold tomorrow, next week, next year, the next 50 years. And so I think having a picture in our minds of what that future could be, and how we are going to play a role in it, is really
Yeah.
important to build that picture. Now, some people will say, well, you're just a dreamer, and where's the reality in that? But I think it's really important to build that picture with yourself in the picture of how you see things going forward. And in reality, they're going to turn out different, right? It's all going to kind of unravel probably quite differently to what you thought and how you
Yeah.
imagined. But at least it's a starting point to be energized and be inspired to work towards something that is that you believe is achievable and fulfilling in your own life.
Yep. I mean, when you were 16 or 17 or 18, how did you imagine your life would play out in the next 20, 30 years?
I think, again, contextually, and it's hard to remember exactly, but I do
Yeah.
think that it was much more regimented. So it was much more, okay, you're gonna complete matric, you're gonna get X number of A's or whatever in matric, and then you're going to go and you're going to study a BCom, and then you're going to go and work at an accounting firm, and then you're going to get a corporate job. It was almost like preordained, and
Yeah.
I had to consciously kind of unsettle that picture as I grew up into my 20s, and say, well, actually, I don't really like that. I actually don't want to work in a big company and just
Yeah.
work in some department in a company. I want to create my own things. I want to build my own things. So I think that, as I say, in a way, it was easier, but in a way, I think opportunities were a lot more constrained
Yeah.
when I was your age.
Yep. You mentioned A's and marks. How crucial do you believe marks are in achieving success in today's society?
Marks are a made up thing. I mean, it's just somebody decided that here's this random subject that you're going to do, whatever. Maths, not that maths is bad, maths is good, and science is good, and English is good, but they're all kind of made up things. And the calibration on deciding whether you're better than the student next to you, it's a made up thing. And, I really think one shouldn't get too, yes, there's a threshold that you have to surpass to get to do what you want to do in the next phase. So be aware of that, but don't become fixated on that being the be all and end all of your, the value that you can add to the world. That I think is really important. That just put it in context. It's just a little step on the ladder to get to whatever you want to do and figure it out. I always had a philosophy which, sometimes I think unsettled my parents a bit. I said, I'm going to do enough studying to do what I need to do. And when I felt like I had done enough, I went to play golf, when I was your age. And that was my way of, kind of just dealing with all the drama around results and matric and all that stuff. I just said, I know enough and I'm going to do well and I'm going to play golf. And luckily it worked, but it's important, I think, not to get too kind of caught up in the drama of marks and grades.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting because I have exactly the same situation in my household. I mean, my mom and I almost fight all the time regarding this sort of situation where she thinks, get the marks, go to university and get a job on doing whatever she decides, whatever the degree decides. And I completely disagree with that. So I'm going to go further back in our discussion about personality. So we discussed ego and all that sort of stuff. What fundamentals would you say are very important in building the correct personality traits to become successful in today's society?
Well, your personality is your personality, right?
Yeah.
It's the personality you were born with. The more I get to know people, the more I realize and understand that they are a unique individual who they were born a certain way, their brains work a certain way, they've had life experiences that make them behave in a certain way, and that's pretty much it. So personality to me is more about unraveling than creating. And like 99% of people I've ever met in my life are actually very interesting people. When you get to know them, when you just like cut away whatever their title is and whatever job they're busy doing at the time, and you just say, like, have a conversation with that person. Where do you come from? What do you believe in? What do you like? What do you dislike? And then slowly but surely, a personality is uncovered. I've had some amazing experiences with like completely strangers that I've ended up going on like a 5-day hike with. And these are people that I never knew, I'd never met before. And at the end of a 5-day hike, like really every single one of them, I kind of know them well. I know them, gotten to know them, appreciate them, and really gotten to know people at a much deeper level. So personalities are unique. I always, with my kids who are around about your age, say to them, like, the one thing we're not allowed to, the one word we can't, that we strongly discourage in the house is normal. When they come home, they say, well, that person wasn't normal, or the way I behaved didn't feel normal. I said, well, what is normal? Who decided what normal is? Why would you ever want to be normal? You are who you are. You are you. So figure out what that is. It might take years. It might take decades. And figure out what makes you tick and where you get your energy from.
100%. So I would take it even further and say that being normal is almost a bad thing in today's society, because for my success at least, I mean, a certain level of wealth is part of the success, as well as obviously happiness and all the basic things. But in the world, I feel like things that make people different are the things that make us abnormal, which is a good thing. Do you agree with that?
100%, 100%. It's a made up thing, you know. And,
Yeah.
it was a societal construct that just, you know, why would you want people to be the same? The beauty about a society is you've got people that are all different, and they think differently, and they want different things, and they have different skills to add. So that's the beauty of, yes, they have to work together. So at some point, you know, you can't, like a lot of organizations or groups, like you have to have some values and norms around a group, because otherwise the group's just it won't be able to move towards a common goal.
Yeah.
So, and that's where leadership comes in, because a leader needs to actually say, okay, geez, I've got all these people and they all want to get involved and they want to add value, but how can I pull them to, how can I bring their skills in without negating their individual strengths and weaknesses and personalities, but just get them working towards a common goal.
So you mentioned leadership. What type of leadership would you say is most effective when it comes to your business life?
What works for me is to really, firstly, fundamentally believe in people. Like I genuinely, and maybe it's you've got the sense of it in this conversation. I believe in the capability and potential of people. Like most people want to do well. Most people want to achieve things in life, and those things might be wildly different. They might be just making sure that their kids have food and shelter, whatever their objectives are. But everybody, you know, everyone's got aspirations. So to me, it's recognizing that people are unique. Firstly, they're all different. They have aspirations, and they also have this potential, which most people, in my experience, don't fully appreciate their own potential. We were talking earlier about thoughts and voices in your head, that it's just, you know, through life experience, some silly teacher said something, or some silly sibling or whatever said something that sticks in the person's head and tells them that they can't achieve, or that they are, you know, a tomboy, or they get labeled. Like we put a label on people. You're a mathematician. You're going to be good with your hands, but people are multi-skilled. They're multi-dimensional. So I think the skill of a leader is to appreciate the wholeness of a person, the potential of the person, and to help them in a group unlock that potential in a way that moves the group or the organization or the initiative, whatever it is, forward. And to me, that's good leadership. If you're able to achieve that.
And for someone who's looking to be an entrepreneur in the next 10 years of their life, what are some essential skills that they should need to develop in that build-up to become that entrepreneur?
Well, I think firstly, the definition of an entrepreneur, in my view, firstly, I think an entrepreneur is a great aspiration. And I'm biased because I am an entrepreneur, and I think it's an incredibly liberating thing to do, because it just means that you're a person that is involved in building new things. So it doesn't have to be a business. It can be an organization. It can be exactly what you're doing with your podcast. It's highly entrepreneurial. It's new. It's novel. It takes balls because it hasn't been done before. You're not sure exactly how it's going to pan out, so you're trying different things. To me, that's an entrepreneurial mindset. It's a mindset of possibility, what could be in the future, and it's a mindset of, well, you know what, I'm going to back myself here. I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to figure it out. And I think that mindset, particularly in the world that we're in now, and that young people are kind of facing, this kind of open, you know, kind of daunting world in a way, overwhelming. I think having that mindset can be extremely helpful.
I completely agree. And you, like we said earlier in our conversation, failure also plays a role. I think one of another trait is also very important, to just accept that you might fail along your path, and you might lose money, and you might have a flop or reach rock bottom. And it's just also being able to, from what I've learned, being able to take yourself out of that rock bottom and put yourself in a different situation, try something else. And I've met people who have had a failure at the start of their entrepreneurial journey and almost thought, I can't fail again, and taken the easy way out and just got a job, or not carried on to be entrepreneurs. And what advice would you give to those people who have failed to try get them out of the situation and start another business or take another risk to try achieve their goals?
Well, there's the old cliche that, what is the definition of a successful person? Successful people have failed more times than people that aren't successful. So, I mean, that's the only way to get there. If you happen to be, have some incredible luck that everything that you try the first time works magically well. I've never met anybody like that. But then you're incredibly lucky. But realistically, you're going to have to try lots of things. And I don't think we need to even label it as a failure. I think we need to label it as, well, that was an interesting experiment. There was a famous conductor called Ben Zander, and he used to say whenever he made like a big mistake or screwed up, he would say, "How fascinating." And that was his way of dealing with it. Like, that's incredible. Like, wow, that was interesting. What an interesting thing just happened. It didn't work. But why didn't it work? Oh, I tried that. And my thinking was, I didn't think it through properly, or I didn't factor this in, or I was unlucky, or whatever. Just to roll with it and to keep going.
Yeah. So you mentioned success and how almost everyone who's highly successful has failed some point along the line. What is your personal definition of success?
Well, to me, success is not a point. It's not okay, he's now successful, so he can now, stop doing what he's doing. And to me, it's more of a mindset and it's a journey. I think labeling is problematic because I think just in the English language, we come up with words, and words kind of dictate to a large extent the culture that we live in. And success is this one word, which I fear that people put themselves in a box that they either successful or they're not successful, which is completely random, really. I mean, I think a successful person, what does it mean, a successful person? Have they maybe built a business? Have they contributed back to society? Do they have a family that actually loves them? Do their kids respect them? All these things that to me would come into a journey of success rather than one business that happened to work well. So I think it's just, to me, a mindset or a frame of mind around improvement. And I think if you're on a journey of improvement, of getting to know yourself better, finding things that you do well, being brave enough to try them out, then you are successful. You are incredibly successful because your life is moving on a journey that's progressing. Then you're successful. Where it ends or doesn't end, and what kind of milestones along the way, I don't think that is the definition of success.
Yep. So what is the next step in your journey then to continue achieving success or continue on this journey that you described as success?
Well, I don't attribute that word to myself necessarily. I think I've been lucky on a few things. I'm fortunate to be doing a lot of things that I enjoy doing. Some of them are working well. I'm working with great people.
Yep.
The organizations I'm involved with are moving forward. If they're not moving forward, or if they don't have any potential for future growth or success, then I'll call it a day and we'll move on to something else. And I think that's the journey for me. And most important part of that journey for me is to be able to, within the environments that I'm in, is to see young people coming through, getting involved, and they themselves building their own journeys and growth in the organizations that I'm involved in. And to me, that does feel incredibly rewarding. And I want to continue doing that. I want to do lots more of that. I want to find opportunities to help young people, get into roles and responsibilities and initiatives where they can, really add value and be incredibly fulfilled as well.
Yep. And looking back on this journey, is there a particular accomplishment or milestone that you're most proud of?
Uh, I can't think of one in particular. I mean, I think the work that I've done in actually outside of business in the non-profit arena, and I'll just tell you briefly about my involvement. I chair an organization called SA Harvest, and
Yep.
it's a food rescue organization. You may have heard of it. And basically, what we do is we source food that would have gone to waste um, from farms, from food producers, from grocery retailers, etc. And about a third of all food goes to waste in this country and actually in many parts of the world. And yet we've got all these hungry people that are desperately seeking good quality food. So our job is basically to source this food, and we have a logistics system. We have trucks and warehouses and systems that collects all this food and gets it into beneficiary organizations who cook the food and distribute the food. So that involvement has been probably the most rewarding thing that I've done, because it's completely selfless, and I feel that it's having a very significant impact.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's great to be involved in something like that.
So we've discussed your personal journey through success and some fundamentals teenagers and people as a whole should develop to become successful. What are some common threads or principles you believe that contribute to building a successful, impactful business across different sectors?
I think defining, what do you value? What is important to you as a leader of that business. In our case, I can just tell you from our side, like those kind of values are firstly service. So whatever we do, in whatever business I'm involved in, like the service, the quality of what we're delivering and how we're delivering it to our customers, even if it's a charity, the way we go about that, I think is really, really important. So I think defining those values and what's important to you and what you think is important to the success of the organization is really important up front. But it will be different for different endeavors. Some endeavors may just require much more focus on analytics or focus on technology, whatever it is. I think it's important to just know like what are the key things that are going to make your business or your organization successful.
And is it possible to achieve success without a set out plan? Is that a possibility?
Well, it's an interesting thing about plans. My view on plans is plans are important, because without a plan, firstly, like how's everybody, supposed to know where you want to take the organization? So there's got to be a plan. But having said that, there's also it's also important to realize that most plans don't pan out the way
Yeah.
that you think they're going to pan out. So it's just a starting point. It's like you were talking about the manifestation and the vision and the dream. It's important to say, listen, this is what we're trying to do. And ideally, we'd like to do it in the next 2 years or 3 years or whenever it is. But coming back to it, what's more important than that is just having the ability to adapt and change tack and be flexible and not be too disappointed when things don't go exactly according to your plan, because plans always change.
Yep. And is there any advice you would give to teenagers who are aspiring entrepreneurs looking to achieve their personal success?
Well, I think you're incredibly lucky to be a young person, even though there's the challenges of the day and social media, and it's the world arguably is more unpredictable now than it was maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So it is potentially more daunting, but what I've experienced is that young people have more to add, and their value is increasing. And the reason I say that is because I think, like, one of the problems we have in society, at a political level, even at a business level, school level, like, the people in charge are actually too old. I mean, it sounds strange,
Yeah.
but because the people in charge, I mean, let's take the country, for example. These are people that are running our country, really should be running it for the next generation and the generation after that, which effectively is young people. I mean, if you look at the demographics and the split, we have in South Africa, we have, a very healthy, fast-growing, young population demographic, and yet the people that are making the decisions about your future are, I don't think, really care about young people,
Yeah.
if I look at their behavior, and I don't think they actually understand young people either. So I think it's a critical time for young people to do exactly the kind of thing that you're doing, to stand up and say, you know what, I actually I want to have a great future. I want to be involved. I want to do stuff that's different to
Yeah.
what my parents did. And actually, I'm going to get involved, because I'm not going to hope that these old people are going to look after my interests. Even if they knew what to do, I'm not sure if they would do it, because it may not serve their interests. So
Yeah.
I would, the short version of that is just, it's the time to get involved. It's not the time to sit back and wait for things to happen. It's the time to get involved in whichever way you suits your preference and your orientation. Just get involved. Get involved in social organizations. Get involved in business ventures. Get involved in nonprofits, and just get involved.
And then to end us off, if you had to go back and say one thing to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Get more involved.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And I really do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great chat.
Cool.
Well done for what you're doing.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Greater Podcast with Gidon Novick on entrepreneurship. See you next time.